Welcome everybody to another Ironman edition. We are glad you're here today. With us, we're going to be meeting tonight as usual, 7 o'clock, tomorrow morning at 6:30. Love for you to come. If you can, if you're in town, you're local, love to get you out meeting with other guys and being encouraged by them as we go through some of these topics and the questions that we have with that. But today we're going into a new habit. Last week it was, or the last couple of weeks, it was flip the script. If we're going to win the day, today it's called Kiss the Wave. Okay, you're thinking, okay, what's Kiss the Wave? I'm going to get into that in just a minute. But we're talking about the obstacle is not our enemy today. So the obstacle is actually the way sometimes to becoming the kind of person and winning the day as God would want us to. And one of the ways that we win the day is by burying the past. And you might think that sounds unhealthy. Okay, we got to deal with our past, or we need to talk about our past. And all those things are all kind of part of burying the past, is dealing with the past, not ignoring it, owning it, and moving forward. And that's what we're going to be talking a little bit about today. But our ability to remember things is actually a gift from God. I mean, He gave us a memory for good or for bad. But it comes with this little caveat, is that we don't always remember accurately. We remember, subjectively, selectively. Sometimes we think of ourselves as being much better in the past than we were. Some of us think our childhood was terrible. Maybe it wasn't all that really that bad. Maybe we had a few bad experiences. So it really is selective. You know, John McEnroe once was quoted as saying, the older I get, the better I used to be, which is a great way of having a selective memory. I use that often. You know, the older I get, especially when I'm coaching, I always tell the kids, how I would have done it. Well, the fact is I probably wasn't as good as I thought I was, or whatever sport that it was. But it can be a blessing and a curse, this memory that we have. Some of us have great memories. Some of us, the older we get, the fuzzier things get. But the problem is, if we remember our past in the wrong way, then we're actually living a lie. And it can really project how we live in our day-to-day and how we live in the future based on maybe the lies that we've been telling ourselves all along. You see, two people can encounter an obstacle or a difficulty or something that happened in their past, two different ways. Maybe it's a difficult diagnosis you've gotten with cancer or, COVID or, some other kind of disease. Maybe you've gone through a divorce, or you're going through one, or you've had a death of a loved one, which I've gone through. But a person has to own their pain, or their pain is going to own them, okay? So in other words, if you don't own what's happened in the past, it's going to own you and it's going to control you. And it's something that you're going to have to learn to deal with. One event, the same event could make one person better and it makes another person bitter. And I, like you and I, we all know people like that. They've come through something with flying colors, or it's wrecked the rest of their life. I had a friend of mine in California who lost a child at 3 years old, and he got through it amazingly. He went on to have 3 or 4 more children. He still grieves that, and he still kind of owns that in his past, but he knows that she's in heaven, and it all depends on how we react. He talks in this chapter. He says you are responsible for your past, but then he goes on to say you are response-able. It's not responsible. So how you respond is how you are going to control what happens in your future. So we've got to come with terms with this pain that we've had in the past, and that it's made us kind of who we are, for good or for bad. Okay, so the term kiss the wave actually comes from a quote by a guy named Charles Spurgeon, old theologian. He says, "I have learned to kiss the wave that throws me against the rock of ages." And I read that thinking, what does that mean anyway, to kiss the wave? Do I have to embrace it because I'm about to get pounded? Hitting the rock, is that the disaster that's going to happen? But then I started looking at it like this. So in other words, I've learned to accept that bad things are going to happen. Bad things are going to happen in my life. They happen in everybody's life. Nobody gets through this life unscathed. But it's great to know that God is going to be there with me, and He's going to help heal me, and He's going to get me onto the next part of my life. So kissing the wave doesn't mean we don't experience storms, or it doesn't mean that we don't experience setbacks, or we don't get seasick during these storms. But the good news is that God can rebuke the waves. God can say, peace, be still. Now you can't move on until we've acknowledged the storm. Okay, once we've acknowledged the storm, we can give it over to God. But until we do, it's just going to be hanging around. I had a friend of mine who refused to go get a colonoscopy for years. Well, he finally did, and when he went in there to get it, in fact, his dad was the one who kind of kept encouraging him to go. When he went in there to get it, he realized he was at stage 3 colon cancer. Well, you know, he didn't ignore it anymore. Okay, once he knew that, he got down to business and started getting chemo and started getting radiation, and now had surgery, and now he's cancer-free. But it's funny how we can ignore things, but when it comes time to deal with something that's going to save our lives, we get down there, we get down to business. So kissing the wave is actually confessing what's wrong in your life, okay? Acknowledging that something bad is happening. Okay, once we've acknowledged it, then we can give it to God and we can say, okay, God, I'm acknowledging this storm, but I also know that you can calm the storm. And until you do calm the storm, I am also really glad to know, and I'm inviting you to be right there with me as we go through it. There's a clip that I want to show you, kind of funny, from Rodney Dangerfield going in to meet with his psychiatrist, who happens to be Bill Murray.
Doc, how are you?
Hello, Mr. Dangerfield. Sanson, I'll take all calls. Go ahead, Mr. Dangerfield.
I tell you, life is tough. I mean, today started out all right. I got a dial tone, but the pressure is still there. And this pressure is like a heaviness. And it's always on top of me, this heaviness, since I'm a kid. Other people wake up in the morning, new day, up and at 'em. I wake up, the heaviness is right there waiting for me. And sometimes I even talk to it. And I say, hi, heaviness. And the heaviness looks back at me, today you're gonna get it good. You'll be drinking early today.
Okay, so Rodney Dangerfield in this clip, if you don't know Rodney Dangerfield's whole shtick as a comedian, it was always like, I don't get no respect, all these bad things always happen to me. But when he talks about heaviness here, it kind of made sense to me. It's like, okay, I'm acknowledging that I have heaviness in my life. I'm acknowledging that I have anxiety. I'm acknowledging that maybe I'm a little bit depressed. Now, in his skit, he says, okay, you're going to be drinking early tonight, you know, this heaviness talking to him. Okay, as Christians, okay, we're acknowledging that we have this underlying thing in our life. And when we find ourselves in these difficult situations, you know, we want to do anything we can to get out of them, don't we? Okay, but rather than do that, maybe this is a time where we should be asking ourselves, what can I learn through this situation? Why am I experiencing this heaviness? Okay, and once I've learned that it's there, and I'm questioning why am I going through this, I'm inviting God to come into this with me, and we're going to end up coming out on the other side. Now, I have heard of people who say things like, well, I don't know exactly how they say it, but they will actually pray that they will suffer because they think through suffering they will become more Christ-like. Well, I don't know if that's good or bad, but I can tell you this, I'm not ever going to do that. I am not going to pray for suffering because in my opinion, it's coming, and it's coming soon enough in one way or the other. And when it does, we have to recognize how it can actually enrich our lives in a way and change us in a way that's for our own good and that's going to actually help grow us. You see, every testimony starts with a test. And you pass the test and you get a testimony. And some tests are bigger than others. You come out on the other side of that, you're going to have a great story to tell people. But what good is it going through a hard time or going through a difficult time if you're not the kind of person who's prepared to share that with other people? You want to be able to share the good times and the bad times. You want to be able to share your victories and the difficult times that you are going through, because you're going to be able to help so many people if you do actually walk through them with the hard times that you went through and how God brought you out on the other side. I want you to look at the difference. We're talking about heaviness. I want to show you the difference between grief and depression. There's a slide we're going to show right now. It says, grief is depression in proportion to circumstance. So in other words, grief is actually a good thing. It's a God thing. God is the one who created us with the ability to cry, with tear ducts and all those things. But depression is grief that's out of proportion to the circumstance. So depression is taking what was normal and what was God-given and taking it to the extreme, to the point that it can be debilitating to us. You know, and somehow, some way, we've got to acknowledge that this heaviness or this change in our life is always going to be there. Okay, you're not just going to wake up one day after a tragedy happened in your life and you're going to be 100% okay. Okay, there is a new norm. I remember one time after going through a very difficult period in my life, I asked my mom, I was talking to her on the phone, and I said, I just want things to be normal. I just want to feel normal again. And she said, as only my mom can, what's normal? You know, and it was really profound. Like, what is normal? Okay, what is what is it supposed to feel like? Okay, so as we grow and as we age and as things happen to us in our lives and we go through these different stages of life, okay, there's always going to be a new norm. There's always going to be a new normal. 1 Thessalonians 4:13 says this. Go through this slide. It says, brothers and sisters, we do not want you to be uninformed about those who sleep in death, so that you do not grieve like the rest of mankind who have no hope. Okay, if you're dealing with the loss of somebody, you're dealing with the death of somebody, you're dealing with something terrible that's happened in your life, okay, we're different in that we have hope. Okay, you're different from the average person who doesn't believe in God and doesn't have his hope in Jesus Christ. Okay, we have hope, and that's what it's saying here in 1 Thessalonians 4:13. You're not like the rest of the world who doesn't have hope. You should have hope in your life. Well, sometimes God delivers us from his suffering. Maybe you had stories of that. Sometimes he doesn't. God's timeline is so much different from ours. You know, he wants to teach us lessons through these difficult circumstances, and all we want to do is get out of it. We just want to get out of it as fast as we can. But God's got a different timeline because he knows that sometimes the longer we're in it, the more we're going to depend on him. And the worse things get, the more glory he gets when we do get out on the other side. So why does he let us go through these things? And then why does he deliver us out of them? Well, one, so he can get the glory, but two, so that we can help other people when they're also going through difficult times. I want to read this to you. This is called the Serenity Prayer by a guy named Reinhold Niebuhr. Anyway, it says this. Read along with me. It says, God, give me grace to accept with serenity the things that cannot be changed, courage to change the things which should be changed, and the wisdom to distinguish the one from the other. Living one day at a time, enjoying one moment at a time, accepting hardship as a pathway to peace. Taking, as Jesus did, this sinful world as it is, not as I would have it, trusting that you will make all things right. If I surrender to your will so that I may be reasonably happy in this life and supremely happy with you forever in the next. I know a lot of you guys have read the first part of that Serenity Prayer. You know, God, give me the grace to accept the things I can change and you know, the courage to change the things that need to be changed, you know, that whole part of it. But we often skip the second part where it says accepting hardship as a pathway to peace. Okay, we don't have to like it. Okay, we don't have to get excited about it. You don't even have to pray for it. In fact, I hope you don't pray for it because it's going to come anyway. But it's letting God work in you. It's letting God make changes in you and refining you into the person that you're going to be. He says so that we may have a reasonably happy life. I love that. And then a supremely happy life for eternity. I want to conclude with this. There's an old saying that says, let go and let God. It's hard to let go of present tense stresses and anxiety. It's hard to let go of things that we're worried about in the future, but it's super hard of letting go of past tense pain. All of you guys know somebody or you've gone through it yourself, people in your life that have gone through a lot of pain. in their childhood, maybe in their marriage, maybe through infidelity with a spouse or something like that. There's a lot of pain that's happened in your life or in their life. There's nothing harder than that, of letting go than that. So how do we let go, or why do we let go? Well, we have to let go so that the past doesn't own us. Okay, we need to own the past. We are response able, okay? We are able to respond however we want to. The question is, are you going to be bitter, or are you going to be better through the experiences that you went through? And you might be sitting there saying, yeah, it's real easy for you to say all this. You haven't gone through what I've gone through or whatever. Okay, look, we've all gone through difficulties. Everybody has a story. Everybody has struggles that they're going through that you don't even know about. So don't think, poor me, I'm the only one who has to go through this. You may just be more vocal than other people. Okay, everybody's going through some kind of struggle or difficulty in their life that you don't even know about. So when we have, life's pain and life's difficulties come at us, the question we need to ask ourselves is, what are you going to teach me through this? We say, hello, heaviness, like Rodney Dangerfield. What do you have for me today? Okay, what am I going to learn through this difficulty that's coming here today? And God, I want you to come into it with me and help bring me out on the other side. Have a great week, you guys.